Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to Vlog 91, the post-PhD future. And I have a guest, Dr Amy Seymour-Walsh. Besides being about the post-PhD future, this vlog is also a special one. Once a year, it's become a bit of a tradition since the wonderful glory last year, that for our Christmas vlog, I introduce somebody quite extraordinary to you, to provide a bit of cheer for the season, but also somebody that represents the best of what we did last year and provide incredible inspiration for the year that is to come. The year that is to be born, Amy. And I particularly want to talk about health and the allied health professions in particular, because it's an area of incredible growth internationally and at Flinders. And of course, you know, whether we're dealing with digital health or health informatics, this area is big. And the wonderful Dr Amy Seymour-Walsh is very much a part of it. She completed her PhD this year and is about to graduate in a matter of days. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
So excited. And I adore this woman. She is a remarkable scholar, a remarkable clinician, and I think so much of the future of what we're going to do in health research is going to be based on the scholarship that this great woman is going to do. I back her. Hello, Amy.
Hello.
How are you in your floral?
Oh, I'm well, thank you.
You're looking very summery.
It is quite warm.
Yeah, I tried to look summery and I sort of ended up sort of goth and sort of Stevie Nicks a bit on crack, but you very much look summery, and you've done so many things during your career, Amy. I just wanted to, for everyone who's watching this, not only in a PhD, but also thinking they might do a PhD, particularly they may be a paramedic and thinking about going into it. So could you tell us about your undergraduate degree and why you were drawn to paramedicine?
Right. Well, I started paramedics straight out of high school, so it was, I suppose, in some ways a little bit of a shock. I was always drawn to healthcare type roles, so I've been thinking medicine for a long time, and I'd spent some time in high school volunteering with the local CFS and realised that that was quite fun, and I figured paramedicine would be halfway between the two, where, you know, firefighting and medicine cross over. So I tried it, and
I've never heard you tell that story before. Is that for real?
Yeah.
So, but you've always handled crisis, can I say, incredibly well too. Something I've always admired in Amy is that you handle the trauma and the surprises of daily life with incredible resolve. So is that why you went into it as an undergraduate qualification?
To be honest, I don't think I had the wisdom at the time to be able to piece that together. It just seemed like fun. So I've grown quite a bit since then, I like to think. But yeah, I don't think I thought about it that deeply. I was just fortunate.
Wow, and your temperament and your personality is so well suited to an incredibly stressful career, and of course then you ended up in a stressful PhD. So after that experience, why did you decide to do a PhD, Amy?
Well, I'd started a second undergraduate degree after paramedics. I'd worked for a few years, done some other study, done some postgraduate study, and then I started a Bachelor of Science and Mandarin Language. And it was, I know, right? And it was while I was studying ecology in this science degree that I was surrounded by these 19 and 20-year-olds who were already talking about what project their PhD what shape it might take, what supervisors they might pursue. And I was, you know, in my late 20s thinking, I don't feel like my life's together enough to do a PhD, and these young, you know...
whippersnappers.
I know! And I thought, well, maybe this is something I could do. And I suppose I learned so much about, you know, sampling and research processes generally in that topic that I ended up swinging across to clinical education postgraduate.
Oh, that is unbelievable. I didn't know any...
into research.
See, I didn't know any of this, but before we get to research, can I talk about teaching? Because you are a fantastic teacher. You're a really, really fine teacher. I'm incredibly proud of you that you do that work. But could you tell us about what you think are the great strengths and challenges, say, in health education, and perhaps particularly paramedicine and teaching and learning in paramedicine? What you think are the big areas for us to think about in the future?
Well, when I think back to my own learning, I think it's really tempting and drawing to focus on what we do, things we need to learn, things we need to understand, recall, knowledge we need to apply, and the skills we need in order to achieve that task.
Yeah.
But the more I reflect on my own career, it's actually more about becoming a person. So it's not about what we do so much, it's about who we are, because our sense of self, our sense of role and purpose and identity is so closely intertwined with things like health practice, probably more so than a lot of other professions, that you bring so much of yourself to it. So teaching someone what to do is a really important part of education, but also, you know, mentoring people to embody that identity and what the public expects of us, what the organisations expect of us, and what our families expect of us when we come home at the end of the shift, is something that I think can't be underestimated in education.
I think that's remarkable, and do you think particularly in the allied health professions there is a sense of it's about skill development, particularly at an undergraduate level?
I do, yeah.
And what do you think of the consequences of that to the profession? Will it hold back paramedicine, do you think?
I think it certainly has the potential to. So skills can be very sexy, you know, I did this particular skill or whatever, but sometimes that can detract from what the patient needs as a member of the community, and put the onus on us as the treating clinician who gets the glory because I got to do that skill that, you know.
That saved a life.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that the clinical care is any, you know, substandard or less by any stretch of the imagination, but it just slightly shifts the philosophy of care, I suppose.
She's good, isn't she? Wow. Now, hang on to yourself here. You might have seen Amy before. Amy did a vlog with me and the wonderful Sunny Rushavara, hi Sunny, called the Unicorn Vlog. They are unicorns because they finished a PhD in 3 years. Now, it's been a few months since we recorded that vlog. Looking back on it right now as you're about to graduate, what would you say to everybody out there about the benefits of a quick PhD completion in 3 years? What's the benefits of that? There are disadvantages. What's the strength of it now looking back on it?
I'm done. It's done. And I feel like I can start 2018 not only with a fresh slate, but a fresh slate where other things have already started to, you know, gain some momentum. So, you know, I assumed starting out a PhD that most people take 5 6 years. I've known some people to take 8 11 years. And by the end of it, they were totally unwilling to talk about their thesis. And here's me, you know, fresh and bright-eyed, wanting to talk about methodology, and they were like, I don't want to talk about this. And I thought, oh, that seems a bit sore.
That seems like an abuse narrative.
And so I think I realised that, you know, at 3 years at the start, it sounds like a long time, and then there's, you know, a little bit of a waiting for the administrative stuff for it to all become formalised. But the time will pass anyway. You might as well be working towards something in that time, because who knows where we're all going to be in 3 or 4 years' time. But if I'm working towards something, I'm no worse off. And so I think, yeah, anticipating that chunk of time can be a bit scary. But in the meantime, you know, people die, people's jobs change, health changes. There are so many things that can potentially derail that, and by shortening the time, as long as you're taking care of yourself and the people around you, then I think you minimise the chances of those sorts of things going wrong.
So wise, because I think 3 years, you can almost see 3 years in the future. And as you said, the time is going anyway, whether you're watching daytime television or enrolled in a PhD. But 3 years is almost, you can predict, you can see the end of that. 8 years.
Oh.
I mean, you're a different person.
I was a totally different person 8 years ago.
So I was in a different country, and then a different country, and then a different country 8 years ago. So 8 years, you know, you're a different person, often in a different marriage too, but that's a whole other thing that we'll maybe talk about later. But 3 years, I think, is probably predictable. So you can commit your life, I think, to that. Now, the other reason Amy's here, besides she's a unicorn and she's a fantastic teacher and just an inspirational human being, the other reason she's here is because she's done something extraordinary again. And it's something that I've never seen any other student do anywhere in the world. Now, you need to hang on to yourself here. She moved from completing the PhD, which in and of itself is a book that we're preparing as a book, but within weeks. Within weeks, Amy was sitting across the way from my desk here, and she said, I think I've got another book in me. I think I'm going to write another book on being a paramedic. So we're approaching Christmas 2017. Happy Christmas, everyone. Approaching Christmas, and this wonderful woman has 2 books in her future for 2018 as published works. So, Amy, how did you decide there was a second book in you straight after the PhD?
I think what I did was I just listened to that niggle that said, this is important. So certainly during the final few months of my PhD, when things do get a bit stressful and you start to question the meaning of life itself and what am I doing here, I started to reflect so much more on my professional work as a paramedic and realised that there was a lot that I was grappling with and coming back to that idea of identity and embodiment of a role and purpose and whatnot. And I realised if I'm working through this stuff and I was hearing that other people were working through similar things, then maybe, you know, the research out there on organisational psychology and stress management and, you know, mental health in the workplace, maybe that all needs to be pulled together so that we can continue the momentum of that conversation. So
your PhD was very much on paramedicine, health teaching and learning, and how we help paramedics learn. That was the PhD. Therefore, what's this second book on? Can you tell us a bit more about it? Because it is incredibly powerful.
So the second book is on stresses in ambulance practice, essentially. So what are the emotional burdens of our role? How do those lines blur in with mental health symptoms or diagnoses? What are some of the factors increasing those stresses? What are some of the mitigating factors? And how can we, both at an individual level and a corporate level, seek to address that and achieve the best for the patient, achieve the best for the workforce, which then achieves the best for the health department and funding measures and all those sorts of things.
And can I say, the final draft of it is sitting in my inbox as we speak. I just saw the attachment, so I'm really looking forward to reading the final draft. But also part of what you talk about in that book is a movement from post-traumatic stress. Because, I mean, you know, AMBO's on the side of the road, someone is dying, post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth. And you are going with that phrasing, aren't you? Are you finding that post-traumatic growth a productive phrase for paramedicine?
I do. I think we hear so much more about post-traumatic stress or PTSD at the moment, and I think to use half of that phrase but to turn it in a different direction might actually achieve something in how we perceive stress, because stress in itself isn't a bad thing. It helps us run away from that saber-toothed tiger, and, you know, not
which you see a lot in Adelaide, can I say?
It's always a saber-toothed tiger.
I found some. Yes.
So stress in itself isn't a bad thing, but, you know, if we adapt poorly to it and it creates, you know, biological and psychological pathways for us, then that can be an extremely difficult thing. So I like that term of post-traumatic growth, and some of the basis underpinning that of the cognitive load that's required to reconfigure your worldview to incorporate the new experiences and data in a way that makes you as a person a new person and a stronger person.
And resilient.
Resilient, yeah, is new, I think.
Second book, PhD, astounding. And therefore I want to try and get some meta advice from you, Amy, because you've handled this better than anybody I've ever seen. So someone finishes a PhD, what would you recommend for them at the point they finish the PhD for their post-PhD research plan? What would you say to everybody out there? They finish the PhD, what next? What would you say?
I would say that completing and finishing a PhD it's a big thing to do. So, but one of the things that we need to battle during candidature is this idea of imposter syndrome and confidence issues, and that's come up in a few vlogs already, and that a lot of that resonates with me. But when you've finished, a lot of that, you can still feel that, but actually you've done something that, you know, a lot of people can do, but very few people do. And so you've proven yourself not only to the institution, to international scholars who assess your work, to your supervisors, but to yourself as well. And so when I remember that, I realised that I'm not a dill, and maybe I do have something of worth that, you know, might help other people going through this journey as well. So to focus on that as a concrete source of confidence rather than being, you know, the ebb and flow of your feelings, I found quite helpful, and it gave a little bit more credence to the story I felt that was helpful to tell. So that certainly, but then also reflecting on what was that niggling kind of voice saying of this is important, and I could have discredited that because it wasn't the content of my PhD, but it's been an incredibly difficult but cathartic and I think really important book to write.
And you've written it so quickly. I mean, we're at about 58,000 words. How long did it take you to write that?
I think I started it about 4 months ago, but there were about 2 whole month periods that I had off. So, but I found a routine and it worked for me.
And look, it is a truth, and I've picked it up from you as well, and it is a truth that it resonates with me as well, that every project has the egg or the moment of the next project within it. So for colleagues out there that are working on a PhD, that's important in and of itself. I think that's a really powerful statement you made there, but often in that success is the start of the next one. Definitely. And the next one and the next one. I've
written the outline for my 3rd book too. I just haven't told you that yet.
So what's the 3rd book on, Amy?
But I'm holding back until, you know, I would love to bring together the knowledge and experience and research around researching within paramedicine. So I think we've got some really great books around nursing and allied health research, and that's fabulous. But paramedicine is such a unique culture, and we're at the beginnings of our profession in many ways, and we're seeing that now by, you know, more and more starting interest in research. So I would love to help guide paramedic researchers.
You are watching a remarkable human being here, and I'm so glad we've captured this for posterity, really, because Amy, I have no sense about where your career will end, my love. The trajectory and the momentum that you've got is remarkable, and also you're a decent, wonderful, caring human being as well. And so the idea that your career is just going to go from here, you are of incredible credit to this university, and I've adored every second of working with you and knowing you.
Likewise.
Oh, but how amazing is this? So these Christmas vlogs are meant to be inspirational. There she sits. So we, both of us, wish you an incredibly happy festive season. We want you to have incredible success in 2018. She certainly will. So happy Christmas to everybody. Compliments of the season. We wish you love,
light
and peace. Amy and Tara out. You gonna wave?